All right, this is Mike and I just chatting. We're talking about, as we're doing all of our primary aims and our goals of what do we want for next year. We're talking about content for the company, all that other stuff, and then goals. So you sent me a link, said here's a cool property coordinate. When you guys were on your cruise, I was excited when you got back because you're like, we spent a lot of time primary aiming, and we're going to get some more investment properties. We're going to start getting some investments, start cash flowing, extra cash, right?
Yes, because my wife historically likes to hoard cash.
All right.
And it drives me nuts because cash just sitting in our bank account does not do much for us.
And that's not necessarily wrong. Why does she like hoarding cash?
It's just how she grew up.
That's it. Yeah.
So she grew up with that, right? And so she's just very, very risk adverse. And I get it from a comfort perspective. And we have investments. We have a rental property already in DC, but for us, we just really started chatting, and I said, listen, like we were talking about all the places she wanted to go, right? And I'm like, wouldn't it be nice though if something else was paying for those trips, so that it was now not a matter of anything other than where do you want to go and when? And she was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm like, well, that's very easy to accomplish, right? As long as we're on the same page. And so we spent that entire cruise basically getting on the same page that having a lot of money sitting in a bank account isn't going to provide that. Sure, you could take that money out, but now that's an expense, right? Versus having something else that's generating that income that literally just funds those trips with ease, right? Really, it really is easy. So that was the thought.
Pause for a second on this because I want to make sure you guys got this and it took me a long time to figure this out too, because I was brought up, we're all brought up in different ways. I was brought up to go make money, right? Just go make money. Go buy what you want. Go make money. Go buy something. Go make money. Go buy something. Go make money to buy something. So I did that. I went and made a bunch of money. I went and bought something. Made money. Bought something. But it turns into that constant hamster wheel from hell.
Yeah.
Right. And then when the light bulb clicks, you're like, wait a second. Let's go buy something that spits off cash.
Yeah. Every
month, and then go buy whatever you want with only the cash it spits off.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, the concept for me was, and just knowing myself, if I want a toy, let's say I want to go buy a Ferrari, right? Now Ferrari is going to be $2,500 a month, $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
Just going to do that's hard to justify that, right?
Because you have to sell consistently an extra house a month.
Yeah, because now you're sitting there, it's not yet, and that's just the payment, right? Non-insurance, maintenance. So when you think about that, you're like, oh God, that's a big liability, right? But what if
it's pressure?
But what if you bought a building that's building equity, that's spitting off cash, that's spitting off $5,000 a month, that now more than pays for the Ferrari and is building equity for you over time. So not only did you take that money you were going to put down on the car, but now you build an asset that's producing income for you long term, much longer than I'll ever own the car. Right. And that's really what got my brain turning of like, yes, that's the right way to do it. So let's put the car on hold. Let's put the other stuff on hold until we've got assets that are paying for those items.
And that's it. So Mike sent me a listing, just said, hey, what do you think about this, right? Cool house, nice income, throws off.
Yeah, it's a little duplex.
A couple $1,000 a month cash flow on it after expenses, right? Because it's not bad it's good, it's smart to finance because you're using other people's money and you got leverage, right? So you don't have to buy a $300,000 duplex, you really need to buy a $75,000 down payment.
Correct.
Right, and does that justify it? So when we started talking about this whole thing, we're like, all right, the house looks nice. It doesn't look like it needs a lot of work.
Had a lot of new stuff
in there, but that's good and bad, right? So everything you just got to peel back the onion layers to figure out what it is, because somebody already made the money of improvements, which is okay because you don't have the time and the need to go do what they did, but you're paying retail for stuff that they already did.
Correct.
So option number one is buy a total shit box, right? That doesn't have anything new in it. And then now you can hire the flooring guy and the paint guy and the window guy and the appliance guys yourself. No, but that's a whole different strategy, and that's now you're trading time for dollars, which is another.
Could be a bigger headache.
Right. Could be a bigger upside.
If your desire is to flip, that is obviously the way to go.
Right.
If your desire, like I am, to not really get into flips, instead we're going to hold and get the rental revenue, then that is a little different strategy too, because when I put money into something, I want that money starting to pay me much faster.
Right.
Which kind of led us to why this property on the surface was great, and could be an option, but probably wasn't the best solution when we dug a little deeper.
And how we started digging deeper said, okay, your cash flow is going to be fine. It's good. You should be positive.
Yes.
But my concern is how much money do we have to put down to earn that monthly income?
Yeah.
Because the whole game for me from investments is how quickly can I get paid back?
Correct.
Right? And then keep the cash flow, right? Because the money's your little soldiers, right? You want those guys to go out to work and then come back.
Yep.
Right? And then I'm going to put you on another mission, then come back. And then I'm going to bring back more of you. Then I'm going to put you out to work, and then you guys come back.
Sure.
And then you guys come back. And if you're not going to come back for a few years, I don't like that because I miss you.
Yeah.
I want to put you back out to work faster. So when we started analyzing it and saying, okay, how long is it going to take to get those babies back?
Yeah.
And this one,
85 months on that property, which is a long time.
That's too long.
It's too long.
There's too many things that can happen.
Yeah.
From a lifestyle perspective, from an economy perspective, don't really know. So that property is a good learning experience. This is why we're sharing this, because it depends. And then we started saying, okay, well, why are we doing this? What's the whole point of this one? Because sometimes you can get a loan program with a little smaller amount down.
Yep.
Right? You have to jump through more hoops and check more boxes and do some things, and maybe your payment's a little higher, but you don't have to put as much down. So it depends on strategy and timing of the strategy. It's just we're going to hold these until the boys are graduated, and then we're going to go buy something now, or maybe we'll go buy something in a college town, or there's so many considerations to play, and then it all starts first thing in saying, all right, did you talk with Jeff, the other Jeff, or Mortgage Jeff?
Yeah, I did.
And then Jeff's whole mission is give me my prepaid spending card. Right? Yep. Let me go through your analysis, and then you come out and say, you have this much cash. You can now go buy anything you want up to that price.
Yep.
And then now you start marching, and then you have your searches set up, and we start looking for investment properties. Say, okay, I've got these many soldiers. Where is my best place to deploy those things, and how quickly can I get them back? Right.
Correct.
So, but these are the strategies that we're thinking about, and it's easy to say, yeah, it was a good deal. You'd have cash flow, and you might think it's a good deal, but it depends on what you want, and you want to pay for trips.
Well, and it's interesting too to look at. What I quickly started realizing was with rental rates, there's a range, right? So what I quickly started realizing was, at first I was like, well, this house over here might be $180,000, but it's going to rent for less, right? And then I've got this one over here that's $300, and what I realized was the proportion of what this rents for versus what this for versus cost doesn't equate. So there's a $180,000 property I'm looking at now that's actually much better financial because it costs less out, and the rent's not that far off of the 300. So there wasn't a significant enough jump in that duplex from a cash flow perspective. Now sometimes there is. In these particular properties, there really wasn't, right? This house over here was going to rent for about $1,500 a side, so you're going to get about $3,000 a month. But this house over here was going to get about $2,200 a month, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm making $800 less, but it only cost me $180 versus $300, right? And not even really down payment on the $180 versus $300. So now I'm getting my money back in 3 years versus 85 months. Right?
Big difference.
Big difference. And so those are the things you start to realize. Wait a minute, it's all about the numbers, right? And what can I rent this for? What is it going to cost me? What is that rate of return? And if that's falls within the parameters you're looking for, then you're good to go.
And then you go into other factors, like, you know me, I love short-term rentals. It's a totally different game than long-term rentals.
It is.
And it's a totally different game. And there's not a better game, it's just a different game.
Right.
And so it depends on, do you want to have a third-party person managing it? I mean, you can manage the annual yourself pretty easily.
Yeah.
And you can not have to pay as much, but does the short-term bring in more cash? But depends on how much does the short-term rental cost you. The buy-in's a little bit higher. Does it make sense to grab a buddy and do it together with a higher price for a bigger return? There's too many options, right? So that's why you have to sit back and think and say, all right, there's too many. The answer is yes to a lot of different things. That could be good. So then you have to go back to lifestyle and say, okay, where's my risk tolerance? What makes me sleep well at night? What makes my wife sleep well at night?
Yep.
What do we ever want to visit this one? Is it simply a number? Do we care where it is? Maybe there's a cheaper thing out in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Right? And do you really give a shit?
And I've looked in other states.
Right.
I own one in DC, but I've been looking in some of the cheaper markets as well. So for us, it's not necessarily Florida. This isn't a personal thing. We're not going to live in these. This is strictly an investment for us. And I do think short term for me is a phase 2. So I have a certain kind of, I have an asset list kind of that I want, or portfolio that I want to build first. And then once we kind of get to that threshold, then I think there's going to be a little more comfort in going a little bigger and going into the short term, which for us would probably be along the Gulf Coast here, where we actually have a unit that we would potentially use ourselves. So that's kind of phase 2 for me.
And that's the gut check that you have to always go through, because if you take, let's just use round numbers, $100,000 down payment, right? You can go buy a $350,000 house right now. But if you save that 100, if you blew your 100 today, it's gone, right?
Correct.
So now it's 3 years from now till you see those little soldiers come back. The question is, do you wait until you have 150? Because this is a game of leverage, right? So it's 25%, it's a math formula. 100 equals 25% of X. 150 equals 25% of Y. 200 equals 25% of Z, right? And you know how long it takes to make money. Correct. So how quickly do you want to deploy this? What is the outcome? And if you wait, if it took you an extra 6 months to make an extra 50 grand, what's the return on that 150 versus what it would have been with 100, right? And then now you say, okay, I'm going to go bust ass until June. And on June, I'm going to have $180 to put down. And then now I'm going to go buy these two. Maybe it turns into a duplex in Tampa versus a triplex. Now you have an extra check coming in, right? So, but that's the gut check, because there's always another drunk monkey opportunity. So you know what, that makes sense. Maybe I should wait. But then now you have your money doing nothing for the next 6 months. But now you can make more money in 7 months. And what do you think? What do you think, honey? Right? So the point is, it's confusing.
Yeah, there's no right answer, right? I think it's got to be what you're comfortable with, and how fast do you need that return, right? Is that something you need immediately? Is that something, because it also depends on where you're getting the rest of the cash from, right? So if I go to close on a unit, where's the rest of that funding coming from? Is that finance? Great. What's that payment? Can I swing that payment while I don't have necessarily the rental?
What happens if the tenants don't pay you?
Yeah, what happens if I have to foreclose, right? These are things you got to think about. Make sure that you're covered, which is why when you do this, right, there's, I see these people on the internet all the time. They're like, well, this house generates the difference betwing what it cost me and what I rent it for. Well, that's not really true.
At 100% occupancy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, 100% occupancy, great. What is really renting at? And then beyond that, do you have property management? Well, okay, well, there's 10 to 12% coming out. Are you putting anything away for repairs and maintenance in
What's
general?
your taxes?
Right? Do you have taxes? Like, those are things to consider too, and all of a sudden that number gets a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So the good thing is, and the reason I'm so excited about doing this year, is we are headed into a market where, as a buyer, if you've got cash, you're going to be able to have more strength over the next few months at least than you did 12 months prior. So I'm excited to be able to leverage that cash to go get some good deals while they are out there. And you're going to have a lot of people that are scared, and because they're reading headlines and they're thinking the world's falling, and that's why there's a lot of wealth that'll get built in this next time period, because there's a lot of other people saying, well, I don't think it's falling quite as bad as you think, and I've got cash, so I'll go take. If you're scared, here you go.
And then the strategy is, rather than if it's up for sale for $325, maybe I'm better off paying you $325. You contribute $25,000 towards my rate buy down, and knock my rate down to 3.25%.
Yeah, instead of being in the 6s.
And it's a math equation. Plus, there's an IRS code that I just found out this morning that if I was the seller and you bought my house for $325 and I gave you the $25,000 at closing to actually use down to buy down your loan, you can actually deduct that $25,000 that I gave you. So now you have some tax strategies to play too. So the point is, you can't just do something. You need somebody that you trust to go through these options. There's a million of them.
Especially when it's personal, right? Like, I think you get it becomes more emotional, and you get excited about it, right? I look at something, I'm like, oh my God, the numbers look great. Yeah, I'm excited about that. And so when you're excited about something, it's a little harder to stay.
Here's the point, and this is not documented. If you ever put an offer in on your own behalf, I will smack you. Right? Because you can't do it.
Yeah.
Somebody has to negotiate for you because
right?
you're eventually, because Courtney's going to get excited, like, we want this house. And you're going to be like, I don't want to offer that because I might piss them off. They might say no, and it's over. And so you wouldn't be that guy.
Yeah, you need somebody you trust to do that part for you, for sure.
So that's the game. So anyway, we were just chatting, wanted to bring you into the chat because I think you guys are going to find some value in this one. And it's going to be fun. We'll give you some updates along the way as we look at some properties.
Tore them through a few properties and take you through the first one we buy here. And
analyze some options.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and there's a lot of markets out there, right? I have a buddy who keeps trying to get me to do with him. He's buying up, and he's got a bunch of them. He's buying up $80,000, $90,000 in Dayton, Ohio. That's where he buys. He lives here, and he does nothing but buy these small little homes in Dayton, Ohio, and he rents them out for $1,500 to $1,600, $1,800 a month. He's got probably 15 or 20 of them now. That's all he does.
Yep.
And that market works great. Personally, I don't know if I want to buy in Dayton, Ohio. So everyone's got to stick to what they're comfortable with, and for me, that's going to primarily be duplexes, single families, and stuff here locally. But yeah, we'll
see how it evolves into. So anyway, follow the journey. It's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Hit that button. Follow this. Subscribe this.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.